Imagine this. An arena explodes in colour. Crowd roars. Neon sponsors flicker across the sky. Contestants drop into a virtual war zone chasing fame, money, and a few seconds of immortality. Down below, in another time, another layer of the same world. The sky is dead. The ground is broken. Metal giants roam the ruins of an old Italy, and the last people cling to life in an underground city called Speranza. Two completely different games, two completely different vibes. But what if they're just two chapters of the same story? And in today's video, we start opening the book. We're going to follow the trail of logos, dates, and develop a hint to ask one question. Are the finals and Arc Raiders truly connected? Or are we all just chasing ghosts? And there is one logo in particular that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. So before we dive into the rabbit hole, consider hitting like if you enjoy this kind of deep dive lore, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And while you're watching, I want you to think about this and answer in the comments. Same universe or clever fanbait? Alright, let's start at the beginning of the story. Every story starts with a storyteller. In this case, it's Embark Studios, a team in Stockholm founded by ex-Battlefield veterans, led by Patrick Sutherland. They're not just making one big game. They've been clear, in interviews and blog posts, that they're building multiple online worlds, using new tools, AI, and small teams to create something bigger than you'd expect. Two of those worlds are the ones we care about tonight, the finals and Arc Raiders. Let's meet them like characters in a novel. The finals is set roughly around the year 2100. We're never given a precise date on screen, but lore write-ups and community documentation all land us in the late 21st century window. It's a world where people spend most of their lives inside virtual reality, and the biggest thing they all tune into is this insane game show run by a corporate giant called Multico. Contestants blow each other up in destructible arenas, while sponsors, Disson, Alpha Acta, Jiangsu Romagna, and Ranzio and more plaster their logos across every surface. The real world outside, the so-called meat space, is rarely shown. It's hinted at a grim, polluted and controlled by the same companies who own the show. But we don't see the riots. We don't see the wars, just entertainment. This is the golden age of the spectacle. Now jump forward in time. Arc Raiders is not a show. It's survival. It's where people fight back. Official lore places Arc Raiders in the year 2180, 8 decades after the time of the finals. The setting is a shattered Earth, especially a ruined Italy, where mysterious machines called Ark descend from orbit and patrol the surface. Humanity is moved underground, subterranean city centered around a place called Toledo. In there, you've got districts like Speranza, an old, worn-down sector that somehow still feels alive. Neon lights, music, traders, scraps of old world fashion. Embark has described this as a post-apocalypse. The collapse has already happened. This is the generation that has grown up inside its ruins and is now trying to rebuild. So our two characters of this story, a glittering corporate VR game show around 2100, and then a desperate, hopeful underground society in 2180. The question is, are they living in the same universe? And to answer that, we have to stop thinking like players. It's time to become detectives. The first clues aren't in lore entries or dev blogs. They're hiding in plain sight. Back when trailers and early tests were rolling out, players started doing what players always do: pausing, zooming, and combing every frame for something weird. And that's when the same names started turning up in both games. You already know the sponsors in the finals. Dyson plastered on vending machines and arena walls. Alpha Actor sponsoring outfits. Jiangsu Romagna stamped on billboards. Ranzio and other brands scattered across the show like confetti. At first, they're just flavour. Capitalism wallpaper. And then Arc Raiders enters the chat. In some early Arc Raiders footage, players notice something strange. A logo that looks like the Dyson branding across the Arc. Same style, same shape, same colours, just rotated and recontextualised. Was it just an asset reuse from a dev kit? Maybe. Game studios do that all the time. It didn't stop there. Screenshots started circulating of an abandoned helmet in Arc Raiders, half buried in dust, with the Alpha Actor logo clearly visible on it. Yeah, the very same Alpha Actor that bankrolls contestants in the finals. Elsewhere, in trailers and in-game billboards, you can catch Jiangsu Romagna displayed with the same logo it uses as a sponsor company in the finals. Different context, same corporate identity. Suddenly, those just Easter eggs started feeling a little heavier. Then as more people dug in, players reported seeing Ranzio again, another sponsor from the finals, appearing not just as a sticker, but as software and system branding in Arc Raiders. It's as if the back-end operating system of Speranza is literally running on tech from the same corporation that once advertised during a VR Bloodsport. That's not a random bottle on a desk. That's infrastructure. On their own, you could shrug any of these off. It's just dev reusing assets. It's just a fun nod for fans. But when multiple named corporations from one game show up inside the world of another, on helmets, billboards and machines, it begins to less look like a joke and more like a quiet admission. The economy of the finals bleeds into the wreckage of Arc Raiders, and that's where the community stepped in. Fans began writing articles and threads with titles like "Are Arc Raiders and the finals in the same universe? The Arc Raiders and the finals connection explained." Collecting screenshots, comparing logos, noting that the art direction of the corporation stays consistent between games. That the vibe of late capitalistic branding is shared across both. They aren't just seeing patterns in clouds. Embark put those logos there deliberately. But did they put them there as canon or as mischief? To answer that, we need to look at the timeline and the themes. Let's lay the two worlds side by side. On the left, the finals, the year 2100. On the right, Arc Raiders, 2180. It's about 80 years apart. 80 years is enough time for a society to rise, fall, and be half remembered as myth. It's enough time for a whole generation to be born who have never seen the world that came before. Now, think about what each game shows us. In the finals, corporations like Multico, Dyson, Alpha Actor, Jiangsu Romagna, and Ranzio are at their peak. They control entertainment, culture, and probably the tech and infrastructure that keep people alive in this hyper-connected future. Most people live inside VR, chasing clout in a game show that turns real violence into content. We almost never see the outside world, and when we do, it's implied to be rough, but from the top, the message is, everything is under control. And in Arc Raiders, the sky is filled with machines. The landscape is scarred by space travel infrastructure, giant rails and towers that hint at ships leaving Earth. Humanity lives underground, in Toledo and its districts like Speranza, scraping by under rusted megastructures and relying on questionable tech and old world corporations' leftovers. Embark calls it post-apocalypse. The meltdown has already happened. What we see now is the hangover. So now it's time to connect the dots. What if the world of the finals is the last party before the exodus? What if those sponsor logos we see in Arc Raiders are the shells of companies that, decades earlier, helped create a world where people were so distracted by spectacle they didn't notice the sky catching fire? Some fans have taken it further, theorising that the rich and powerful, the kind of people who own Multico and its sponsors, ended up off-world, perhaps in orbitable stations or colonies, while everyone who couldn't pay the ticket price ended up exactly where Arc Raiders starts, underground, looking up at the machines they left behind. Is that confirmed? No. Embark has never come out and said, yeah, the Arc machines are a direct consequence of the world of the finals. But the rhymes are there. A world ruled by corporations. A world abandoned by corporations. VR towers and show arenas. Decayed spaceports and launch rails. Sponsor logos as status symbols. Sponsor logos as rubbish. It feels less like two random sci-fi settings, and more like one long continuous fall. And to really understand why these connections make sense, you have to look at how Embark talks about its own work. In interviews, Patrick Sutherland and other Embark leads keep repeating a few key ideas. They don't want to build just one game and move on. They want online worlds that live for a very long time. They talk about using AI and new tools to help small teams create rich worlds that feel bigger and more textured than their headcount suggests. They've openly said that both the finals and Arc Raiders use similar underlying pipelines, even similar text-to-speech tech blended with real voice acting. And when they describe Arc Raiders, they focus on the idea of a hopeful post-apocalypse. It's not pure despair. It's people insisting on music, fashion, and community even after everything is broken. Now put yourself in their shoes as storytellers. You're a studio obsessed with AI, corporate futures, long-running live worlds, reusable but meaningful world building. Do you make two completely unrelated sci-fi IPs that just happen to share logos, corporate names, and themes? Or do you quietly build a shared corporate cosmos where the final shows the height of a culture that worships entertainment and corporate power, and Arc Raiders shows what's left when that culture collapses or floats away into orbit? Not in a Marvel Cinematic Universe crossover episode way. Not like a Celeste meets the game show host. Nothing that on the nose. More like this. The same companies, the same tech, the same attitudes, two different chapters of their own life cycles. That's where this starts to feel like less headcanon and more like the way Embark likes to write worlds. So after all of that, what can we honestly say? Here's where the line is. We know for a fact the finals is set around the year 2100. A world dominated by VR entertainment and mass global sponsors. Arc Raiders takes place in 2180 on a ruined Earth. People surviving underground in Speranza and fight off the Ark. And we also know Embark has never officially released a canon statement that says that they are connected. Community managers and lore fans will remind you, there's no document, there's no lore post. So the verdict? Functionally, These games behave like they're in the same universe. The brands, the tech, the timeline, the themes, everything lines up. But officially, Embark is leaving the door cracked open, not flung wide. They're feeding the mystery, not solving it. And honestly, that might be the most interesting choice. So now I'm handing the story over to you. If the finals is the party at the end of the world, and Ark Raiders is the morning after, when only the people without a ticket off planet are left to clean up, where do you think Embark goes next? Do we get a game set on the orbital stations where the rich escape to? Do we ever see the last episode of the finals broadcast while the Ark first descends? Do these connections stay forever as whispers, logos, and hints only lore hunters ever notice? Let me know in the comments. Next Embark game should be about, and you fill in the blank with your wildest idea. If you enjoyed this story, consider hitting like and subscribe. Ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive lore into the Embarkverse. Whether you're chasing cash outs in the arena or scraps out on the surface, take it easy, and I'll see you topside or even in the VR. But one thing we know for sure: are we all just fitting into the narrative of the stories Embark creates, getting lost in a gaming world, whilst not paying attention to the meat space?